The moment she said it, the air in the sunlit hotel lobby seemed to tighten, as if the walls themselves were listening. It was late afternoon, light spilling in through tall glass windows, dust floating like tiny stars, and a sentence meant to be temporary landed with the weight of something permanent. She was the kind of woman who usually commanded boardrooms without raising her voice, and he was the kind of man who carried responsibility quietly, like a second shadow. What neither of them expected was that a single request, made out of convenience and desperation, would begin to unravel years of guarded hearts and silent sacrifices. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of human connection, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Touch. Your support keeps stories like this alive and reaching hearts that need them. Armaan Raza had not planned on being anywhere near luxury that day. His life revolved around schedules scribbled on the back of receipts, school pickup times, and making sure breakfast happened, even when exhaustion pressed down on him like a physical weight. The afternoon sun usually found him fixing small machines at a neighborhood repair shop, but that day he had taken time off to attend a corporate job fair, hoping for something steadier. He wore his only blazer, sleeves slightly frayed, confidence held together by determination and love for his young son waiting at home. He felt out of place among polished shoes and practiced smiles, yet he stood tall because he had learned long ago that dignity did not depend on wealth. Meher Kazmi ruled a world of glass offices and endless meetings. As the CEO of a fast-growing tech firm, she was admired for her vision and feared for her precision. That afternoon, however, she was cornered by expectations she could not code her way out of. Investors, family acquaintances, and a carefully curated social circle were gathering upstairs for a high-profile daytime corporate luncheon that blurred business and personal life. Rumors had begun to circulate again, whispers about her being too cold, too alone, too incomplete. She usually ignored them, but that day her mother's disappointed silence echoed louder than any boardroom criticism. She needed the noise to stop, just for a night, just long enough to breathe. That was when she noticed him. Armaan stood near a pillar, sunlight catching the worry lines on his face, hands rough but steady. He was listening more than talking, nodding politely, eyes honest in a way she rarely saw. Something about his stillness felt safe. Without overthinking it, driven by impulse and exhaustion, she crossed the lobby and made her request. It was supposed to be simple, transactional, forgettable, but the way he looked at her afterward, not startled or flattered, but thoughtful and firm, shifted something inside her. Armaan did not answer quickly. His mind ran through images of his son's drawings taped to their refrigerator, of promises made at a small grave years ago, of nights spent choosing integrity over ease. He understood what she was asking beneath the surface. He understood loneliness when it dressed itself as strength. He did not agree right away, and that pause alone surprised Meher more than any refusal could have. When he finally responded, his words were calm, measured, and rooted in truth. He made it clear that if he stepped into her world, even briefly, it would not be as a prop or a lie. It would be as a man who respected himself and the people he loved. They walked upstairs together as the sun leaned westward, casting long shadows across the polished floors. To the onlookers, they looked like an unexpected pair that somehow made sense. Meher introduced him not with titles, but with a quiet pride she had not felt in years. Armaan navigated conversations with the same patience he used with his son, listening more than speaking, offering kindness instead of cleverness. He did not pretend to belong, he simply was. The room, full of egos and ambition, softened around him. For Meher, the afternoon became something entirely different than planned. Instead of performing, she found herself observing Armaan's ease, the way he never exaggerated his worth yet never diminished it. She noticed how he spoke about his child with reverence, how responsibility had carved depth into him rather than bitterness. Somewhere between networking smiles and clinking glasses, she felt something unfamiliar loosen in her chest. She was not being judged or managed, she was simply seen. Armaan too felt the shift. He had expected discomfort, perhaps even regret, but instead he felt a strange calm. Meher's world was not his, yet she did not look down on him. She asked questions, genuine ones, about his life, his work, his dreams postponed but not abandoned. For the first time since becoming a single father, he felt that someone was curious about the man he was becoming, not just the role he filled. As the event wound down and the daylight softened into gold, reality crept back in. This was never meant to last. They both knew it. Meher's life was a machine that rarely slowed, and Armaan's world revolved around a small boy waiting for him with hopeful eyes. Yet endings did not arrive as cleanly as beginnings. When they stood again in the lobby, the same place where everything started, there was hesitation, heavy and meaningful. Days passed, then weeks, but neither could forget that afternoon. Meher returned to her office, but something had shifted. She found herself questioning decisions driven purely by optics, re-evaluating what success meant when it left her alone at the top. Armaan returned to his routine, but he carried a renewed sense of worth, as if someone had reminded him that his life, though quiet, was significant. Fate, patient and persistent, found a way to cross their paths again in the most ordinary of settings, a community technology. Workshop hosted by Meher's company needed volunteers, and Armaan, always eager to learn and grow, signed up. There were no grand entrances this time, no borrowed roles, just daylight streaming through a modest hall, children laughing, and two people meeting again as themselves. Their connection deepened slowly, built on shared values rather than convenience. Meher met Armaan's son, Xavier, a bright-eyed child who trusted cautiously but loved fiercely. She saw in Armaan the kind of father who shaped the future not through wealth, but through presence. Armaan saw in Meher a woman learning to be gentle with herself, to allow space for vulnerability without seeing it as weakness. Challenges did not disappear. Meher faced scrutiny for letting her personal life show in professional spaces. Armaan wrestled with fear, the old worry of letting someone close only to lose them. But this time, they did not face those struggles alone. They talked, learned, adjusted, not with dramatic declarations, but with consistency and care. One sunlit afternoon, as they sat in a park watching Xavier play, the simplicity of the moment carried more weight than any luxury setting ever could. There were no performances left, no pretending. Just two people who had stumbled into each other's lives through a request that was never meant to matter, and discovered that authenticity had a quiet way of changing everything. If this story is touching something inside you, if it reminds you of moments when kindness rewrote your expectations, please take a moment near the end of this video to like, comment, and share. Your engagement helps these stories reach hearts that need hope. Before we reach the ending, a special request to you watching right now: comment what part of this story felt most real to you, or if you believe second chances can arrive in unexpected ways. Meher no longer needed someone to stand beside her for appearances. Armaan no longer doubted his place in a world that often overlooked. Quiet strength. Together, in the clear honesty of daylight, they chose something real. And in that choice, they proved that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop acting and start being exactly who you are.